Good afternoon, folks. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Taryn, and I'm one of the knowledge and research leads here at the Center for Innovation in Campus Mental Health. We're here for our webinar on Indigenous land-based learning, cultivating holistic wellness through connecting with nature. I'm joined here with one of my team members, Megan. I'm just going to turn it over to you for a quick introduction.
Thank you, Taryn. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Venivri. I am Seneca Nation Turtle Clan from Six Nations, and I am the Indigenous Knowledge Lead here at CICMH.
Thanks, Megan. Before we begin, I do want to go over our land acknowledgement. I know we're here virtually, but we're all joining in from ancestral lands of many Indigenous communities. I am currently in Toronto, Treaty 13 territory, and the home of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Wendat peoples, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Chippewa, and people who may still be unrecorded. As a settler myself, it is my duty to acknowledge the effects of colonialism that we still see today and reflect on the ways I may be participating in it and the ways I can actively push back against it. While we go through this webinar, I hope you are able to reflect on ways that you can support Indigenous students and colleagues in your role in order to promote a whole campus approach to health and wellness. And think of ways that you can be active participants in the reconciliation process. I will go over some housekeeping right now. I will also put them in the chat. So there is closed captioning at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to turn it on. There is also French closed captioning. So if you set the speaking language to English and the closed captioning language to French, you will be able to see French closed captioning. The chat function is available for discussing thoughts and reactions. There will be a Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit it into the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. The recording will be available on our website either later today or tomorrow morning. And if you have any questions throughout, you're welcome to use the chat, and myself or Megan will be able to help you. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Mary Laur, who is the Director of the Indigenous Sharing and Learning Center at Laurentian University. Over to you, Mary.
Hi, hello everyone. So as introduced, I'm Mary Laur and the Director of the Indigenous Sharing and Learning Center. I am a First Nations person and my home community is Mishkee-Gagaming, which is a fairly northern community, which is closer to the Manitoba border than it is to here. So I've been in this area for quite some time and but love to go home at least 2 or 3 times a year. So I'm here to present how these courses that were developed here at Laurentian University are exploring the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being of how they impact students. And what we were noticing is that that was occurring actually through the programming. And because that is land-based, that was going to facilitate that anyway. So I'm looking forward to sharing and hoping that you'll have some questions for me after. So the land-based courses, there's 5 of them. There's 4 courses which can be completed as a minor here at Laurentian. And that's the first 4, the one in the eastern direction, the one in the southern direction, the one in the western direction, and the one in the northern direction. And at the end, students can complete a 5th course to receive a certificate. So for the certificate, you do not have to be a Laurentian student in order to complete the certificate. But in order to complete a minor, you do have that because that's a degree module towards your degree. So land-based learning promotes community building and connectedness. And so one of the things that was really important to this course, and I think one of the things that students find uncomfortable when they first start, is that the course doesn't have a syllabus. So if you are a person that likes to do a lot of preparation, You're not going to have something where you do readings to start to get familiarized. You're not going to have an opportunity to look at assignments. So I think that's the first way in which we kind of challenge that emotional and mental aspect of the course, is that it's going to put you out of your comfort zone, particularly for those students who like to be really prepared. So the fire is the syllabus. So the sacred fire runs through the entire course, and it's 8 days. So we start on a Saturday at noon and we finish the course on a Saturday at noon. Students are required to be on the land for the full 8 days. They don't leave. So they're with the program for the entire 8 days. And so when they come together, generally on that first day, or sometimes it's the next morning, depending how much setup time was required. They come together around the sacred fire. So the sacred fire is built, and they come together and they sit around the fire. And through the conversations that are occurring around that fire with the two instructors, the instructors begin to understand what cultural learnings is going to occur, what kind of language components are going to be introduced, where they're at in the language, where they're at culturally, where they're at even emotionally, where they're at spiritually, where they're at mentally and physically. And so the fire then determines the next for the full 8 days, it determines the remaining portion of the course. And so that in itself is an unusual way of approaching a course. So in that way, it's decolonizing the education system. So we're looking at a course that comes from the land itself. It's not coming from the hearts and the minds in a sense of the professors, but it's coming from the land, and then they're taking their cue from that and then preparing to instruct the course for the week. And so another approach in which this was a decolonization of the education system is that I was provided a feather to do the work from a community member, an elder from the Atikmashing Anishinaabe First Nation, as we are partners with them in terms of the use of the land. And so what that means is I actually can't leave until the work is done because I accepted the feather to do the work. And in a sense, again, that decolonizes the education system. So even if I was thinking, oh, that position looks fantastic over there, if my work is not completed here, I stay here until the work is completed. My apologies, my clicker didn't click to the next page, and there we go. So the land-based courses and the land-based learning obviously places the value and respect on Indigenous perspectives. So it shifts from that traditional education system, and so we have kind of two aspects of this course. So one has that kind of learning of construction of language, words, grammatical, where there is what prefix and suffix do you use when using this word, when you're indicating many, when you're indicating few, when you're indicating one person. And so there's a section in the morning, and it's usually at 10 a.m. till noon, where the students are going through that process and they're learning the language, the structure of the language, how they can interact and create sentences, and moving forward in that way in their language learning. And then the second part, which honors that traditional cultural and ecological wisdom, is the storytelling, language through storytelling. So students will sit with elders, and they will knowledge carriers, and they will share cultural teachings and how the language is interconnected to those teachings. And so they're learning two different ways of language acquisition in the same day every day for that 8 days. So when we talk about language, when we're talking about land-based learning, it really is a complex concept, and it doesn't have a real, while it has defined definitions, there is no singular definition that would encompass all the ways in which land-based learning occurs, all the different nuances that students and that the land teaches us. So it really is this complex concept. And so when we're, as I was saying about one of the instructors in the afternoon, in the way in which they talk about the stories, the cosmologies, and how they integrate that language, and you learn the language and the understanding of those concepts, what you're doing is really you're changing the way you think of the world, of the world, the way you preconceived your notions. It challenges them, and so students are then now having to consider the way in which they approached land previously, the way in which they approached each other. Uh, Sometimes they'll go on a hike and they'll demonstrate how the animals are interacting with each other, and the animals are interacting with the trees, and um, considering how you're going to interact with the fish in the water. So the students are really being challenged. And again, it's this notion of being uncomfortable for growth. And so as they're going through that, they're learning a new way of thinking. And sometimes that can be challenging on our brain to think in a different way. Language protections, rights, and accountabilities. So this site, as I said, is primarily and most often on the Atikmishing Anishinaabeg powwow grounds. And we have asked permission from the community, and they are in agreement. And so we come there with our offering to provide them for the use of the land. Some more, like it also includes monetary compensation for the use of the land, but it also includes medicines, in which we bring that and have that sort of contract with them. So what occurs in the first course that's offered in May is they build the learning lodge, the lodge in which that, and so the first group of students build that lodge. And so then they spend, that pretty much takes 3 or 4 days. And you can see the picture of it there in the evening. And like I said, the fire is in there for the entire time, 24/7. And somebody has to stay with that fire. So they create a schedule to stay with the fire, to make sure that it's being fed, that somebody is sitting with it. And then they also build a sweat lodge. And they also learn about caring for the land, caring for the fire, caring for the water through the course of the week. But what I'd like to bring your attention to is that first cohort in that semester builds the lodge. And then the subsequent ones in June and in August care for it. So they're building on and creating that community with the previous classes and the previous students in the classes, to have that connection, and that they're caring for each other's work. And so you're developing that sense of community and that emotional belonging to a community in which you work together to sustain, to build and sustain. And so through reconciliation and relationality, reflection and self-awareness and understanding. And so as we're talking about that and all the things that they engage with as they're going through their course, they're having to reflect. And one of the ways is through cooking, and an understanding of their position in the world, in a sense. So we purposely create a very simple meals. And again, it's uncomfortable for many students not to have the foods they like. It's not that we're providing foods that are horrible, but it isn't If you like to just only eat chicken and chicken breasts, that's not what we're providing. One, it's a challenge to keep chicken fresh and sustainable that you buy from the supermarket uh, when you're when you're on the land, basically, and you're in a camp-like environment, and you only have coolers to keep things fresh. So, and then you have to be the person, and they each get a day with the team that they provide the meals for that day, and they have to clean for that day. And so, again, there's that understanding of caring for each other. And it really is, food is really a challenge for them. I know it sounds kind of like this would not be something, but maybe more people understand than I'm expecting, that food challenges are one of the biggest complaints we have. But it also helps us to remind people, if you're living on a remote community, either A, you have to accept what's being brought in and what can be preserved for a fair amount of time, or you have to go and hunt off the land. And so that's how you survive with what is sustained from the land and what you can use to augment that or supplement that. So sharing knowledges across generations, and that is one of the key concepts of land-based learning, the way in which several generations are coming together to carry that knowledge forward, to make sure that the knowledge that the young people coming forward are carrying that knowledge so that they can make sure that there's security for themselves. So we also, because people who have lived experience can share their experience and hopefully others can learn from them, we do have circles in which people are sharing in that intergenerational concept. And they also have option within the we do always provide a wellness coordinator in the courses, so that students, if they need some one-on-one, if they are experiencing something that they want to explore more, or they want to have somebody to sort of debrief and deconstruct what they're going through. We do have someone that allows them to do that, and then they're able to um, release some of that on the land, and more often than not, that does occur as students are experiencing something new for the very first time. Facilitating learning opportunities, you never know what learning opportunity you're going to receive from the land, and that's what's wonderful about being open to receiving from it. So this student here that is in this photo did her master's degree specifically on these courses. And she wanted to know, her hypothesis was she wanted to know if taking these courses actually improves students' holistic health. So she would interview students who were going to be who were saying yes and willing and accepting to be a part of her research, if they would share where they were at. And she had a baseline rubric of where she was at. And then after taking one course, after taking two courses, after taking all four courses. And so that was her thesis, and she successfully defended in June of this past year, and she is now in medical school. So she really was inspired by the land she wanted to have some evidence that there was healing that happened or wellness that occurred from the land. Oh, sorry, my apologies. So each of the four courses are based on four directions. So the north, the east, the south, and the west. And then the fifth course, which is that certificate course, pulls all of those courses together, and all the knowledges are learned there. And students come together to, in a sense, now have their heart, that their heart is going to go forward with this knowledge that they had, where the language is integrated into the learning, their worldview, culture and tradition, and how to navigate the land that you're living with. And so each of the courses through the sacred fire and the syllabus of the fire, they will come together, and then they will also have some of those directional teachings, the things you're going to learn. So in early May, you're going to start talking about how you're going to harvest birch bark when the time comes. In your how to harvest medicines in August. And those, each of the directions is going to provide a little bit of a nuanced, different teaching. But often the teachings that are core might be similar. So learning it's just not outdoor education. It integrates cultural, environmental, and spiritual lessons, and it recognizes the importance of reciprocity, respect, and balance. So this picture here that I have is one of the instructors. And they work really hard to ensure that the students are going to experience something that's meaningful and that changes them. And like I said, sometimes when you're on the land, and this is Eli Lorne Bob, and he's from Atikamekw First Nation. And when Lorne always says, when you come to the land and you spend more than just a few days on the land and you're really engaging with the land, it's going to cause emotions to come up. It is going to cause you to think. It's going to cause you to do physical work. And you're also going to have an opportunity to engage with the spiritual aspects of the land. And that creates, for a moment, sometimes some imbalances within the person as they're engaging with the different components of that medicine wheel. And so they're really working hard to facilitate that rebalancing by the time the students are finished the 8 days. And we can tell you anecdotally that it's the first 3 days that are the toughest. That's the toughest. And then the next days, the third and the fourth day, the fourth and the fifth day, there's that transition. And then the sixth, seventh, and eighth day, students are really then starting to find their stride and really beginning to enjoy what they're learning. So the core values of land-based learning: reciprocity, respect, and balance. So that reciprocity of mutual exchange and respect with nature, honoring the land, people, and traditions, maintaining harmony with the natural world, and that connection to spirituality through the understanding of our deep ties to the land and its teaching. And this picture here is the other instructor, who is Majijuan, and that's Charles Patatagoose, as well as from Atikamekw Anishinaabe First Nation. And you see here, he's wrapped himself in fur. And that was one of the direction teachings that they were bringing, and when they were going to be preparing, and when you go hunting, and how you prepare for using the hide, how you would clean it, how you would tan it. And so this was, and this was a picture of them on the land. So in conclusion, I would say that land-based learning fosters well-being, decolonization, and cultural understanding. And then moving forward, to continue to create space for that intergenerational learning and healing through connection with the land. And so this is a picture of Atikamekw Anishinaabe from a view, one of the views from the land. And this is in the Learning Lodge, where that the students had built, and it was this weaving of mats that they were creating. Okay, I really appreciate you coming to join me and take some time to hear what I would like to share with you today. So miigwech.
Thank you, Mary. Again, thank you for sharing this very inspiring and very insightful course and program at Laurentian. So I guess now we'll just turn it over to the Q&A. We do have one in the chat right now. So we have a person that just sharing their gratitude for your presentation, Mary. And they were just wondering if the thesis defended by the student that you mentioned, is this published and available on a website somewhere where they can access this thesis?
Okay, so number one, they are always published and they're always in the archives at Laurentian University. I'm not 100% sure where they published, if they had presented it outside of Laurentian. But what I was going to suggest to the organizers is that as a possible follow-up, that you can invite the student to present and share what their findings were.
For sure. Thanks, Mary. Um, and then we have another question here. So did you say that you don't need to be a Laurentian student to be involved? Could a professional in the field take this experience as well?
Yes, they can. So you would be applying to complete the certificate. So that's how you would apply. And then you would take the courses, all 5 of them, to complete the certificate. However, if you didn't, say, perchance complete the certificate, there's nothing that occurs from that either. So if you ended up taking only 2 and 3 and you said that's enough, I've taken away what I need, then I would say then but you would still be on the books as completing a certificate at Laurentian.
Okay, great. And Taryn put in the chat, if we're able to find a thesis online, we can link it to the webinar when our webinar is available on our website. We have another question here. What are some considerations that you had to make for accessibility?
Okay, so one, the at this time, the accommodations have not been one that we are unable to meet. So students, it's a pass-fail course. So students are expected to participate to the best of their ability. So for example, if they were going on a medicine walk, and and they were unable to attend, what one of the students did was they videoed on their phone the entire learning and teaching of that, and then they gave that to the student when they had to come back, and it was agreed upon with the student. We asked the student what would be an acceptable accommodation for them, and they were agreeable to that, and the student was then able to receive the same teaching, the ability to look at the different, when things were ripe, when they were not, when it was ready to pick. And so at this point, we haven't really been unable to accommodate any accommodation that came forward.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And then I just have a question for myself. So can you just tell us what is like the ratio of students that are involved in the course? Like what is like the max number of attendees, and is most of the students that attend these courses, are they Indigenous or non?
Okay, so I'm going to say it's it's about half and half, half Indigenous, half non-Indigenous. We do find a larger proportion of education students taking the course, as they're looking to understand what's involved in land-based learning so that they can take that into their classroom. And we're really grateful that they're participating, which means that they would be bringing a better understanding of how to engage with the land to their students. So it's about 50-50. Most of the students that are in the courses are completing the minor, and some are going on to complete the certificate. More will, I imagine, will be completing the certificate as this course was first offered in 2022 of the fall 2022. But we didn't have, some of the students had already completed all of their elective credits, so they were unable to engage with the certificate. But as we're moving forward and more students are coming in, and we make a distinction that you have to be in second year in order to participate in the course. And that just gives you an opportunity to really appreciate the different methodology of the course as compared to if you didn't have an opportunity to experience a full 30 credits at the university. Did that answer your question? I feel I might have missed one portion of it.
No, I think you answered that well. Thanks, Mary.
Okay.
We have another question here. Did you encounter any issues with liability with your institution? And if so, how did you manage this?
So we do have 2 liability forms that the students have to sign when going on before they can go on the land. If they do not sign it, they cannot complete the course. And so that's worked with our risk and liability department here at Laurentian. And because we already have outdoor adventure leadership at Laurentian, most of that work was done prior to these courses being developed and created. And so we essentially already had a risk and liability form in place.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mary. And then I'm just wondering, do the courses get updated every year or by each like semester that you get feedback from students?
So yes and no. So the major feedback that we receive is the food. And we do, if it's in a sense, if it's I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but if it's a feedback that is, yes, we understand, we didn't think about that, and so we are going to incorporate that. But if it's more like, I don't like cucumbers, so please don't buy cucumbers, then that's not something, that feedback we're going to incorporate into future camps. But that's the major concern. One of the other concerns that occurred was a student said, well, this is the third time I'm learning the exact same things. And after we sat down with the student and we discussed how the Sacred Fire creates the syllabus, and we asked the student, what is it about these courses that you're finding that what's really the particular message you're learning over and over and over again? And once the student was able to reflect and begin to have that self-awareness and understanding as why they were receiving the same message, it wasn't so much that the courses had identical materials, but they were kept receiving the same message. And once we were able to help, and that's part of the land learning, right? You're engaging with it, and if the land is trying to teach you something and you're not hearing it, you're going to get the same lesson over and over again. And I think that happens outside of land learning as well.
Thanks, Mary. We have another question here as well. They made a comment about they're doing a similar project at Trent University with First People's House of Learning each year. However, it is solely grant funded and participants are able to attend our trip for free. Does Laurentian fund this through grants or through course registration costs?
It's funded through course registration costs, plus they have a $400 fee on top of it to supply materials and food, water, porta potties, kitchen materials. So all of that is purchased through that $400. Now, we did use an initial startup funding to purchase all of like the major equipment, but then the $400 per student is used to replace anything that's not working. So students, for the 8 days, they get 6 credits, or if you're in another credit system, a full credit. So it is we expect a lot of internal work and a lot of learning to occur. And so the students do get that full credit or 6 credits in the Laurentian University system. And I think I remembered that somebody had asked the size in a previous question. And so we feel that about 15 to 20 is the ideal size, but we've had as much as 30, but we've never had less than 15.
Okay, wow. Great. Thanks, Mary. And then we do have a question about, do you know if there's other universities across Canada that are doing similar courses?
I think there are other universities that are doing land learning, but I think we are more one of the, I'm not sure if there's any other, but I haven't heard of anybody that's combining that land learning with the Anishinaabe or First Nations language immersion integrated into the land learning. So I haven't heard of anybody who's doing like those two intertwined. But I do know that there are many institutions that do land learning, and one would be if you were having a class on it, and then you would go for living on the land for a while, or you're going in a 10-day camp environment. But it isn't integrated with language.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Mary. And then I just have another question. I guess how did this course came to be? Like, were there talks beforehand, or were there concerns addressed by faculty or students that, I guess, yeah, created this?
Yeah, that is an interesting story of how this course came to be. So I'm not sure if everybody's heard, but maybe everybody has heard that Laurentian University went into a CCAA, in which, in other words, we kind of went through that process of a bankruptcy, insolvency, and we could no longer have support connection with the University of Sudbury, Thornhill University, and Huntington University, which were the 3 federated universities that we had been working in collaboration with. And which meant that at the University of Sudbury was where the Indigenous Studies program was housed. And so Laurentian no longer had an Indigenous Studies program. So what happened was the interim director, AVP of Academic and Indigenous Programs at the time was Dr. Susan Manitowabi. And one of the faculty members who had been impacted by the University of Sudbury's layoffs was Dr. Kevin Fitzmaurice. And so the 3 of us were looking at ways in which we could create and how we would move forward again into having an Indigenous Studies program at Laurentian University. And so we spoke with the elders, and we spoke with Tikmishin community, and we also spoke with high schools. And one of the things that they did say was that there was a greater need for land-based learning. And so we looked at ways in which we could do this, and Dr. and Eli Bob, one of the elders in the picture that I showed you, he was really a strong proponent of language acquisition by doing and being and hearing. And so as we sat with him and we talked, we were able to create this course. And through the process of insolvency, these courses were created, and we established ourselves a place where we could begin to work on moving forward to an Indigenous studies course. And the courses are really successful. They have a long wait list of students who want to complete them. And so it came from a need and a desire to have Indigenous presence in the academy here at Laurentian, and it also came from a need from community to integrate more land-based learning into the curriculum.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Taryn, do you have a question for Mary or no?
Yeah, for sure. No, I wanted to ask what, based on the students you've met and who have taken this course, what their experiences were like, and in terms of their mental well-being and how that supported their understanding of mental wellness as a whole.
Yeah, so like I said, one of the things that I'm really learning is uncomfortableness, and working through uncomfortableness. And so one of the things that, like I said, in those first 3 days, the majority of students are very uncomfortable, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, whether it's spiritual. There's an uncomfortableness that occurs in the 3 days. And the instructors and the wellness coordinator work with them to push through to their ability to go through that. And when they come out, sometimes it's not the first couple of weeks that they come back and share how transformed they are. But everybody comes back transformed and comes back with skills that contribute to their wellness moving forward. So we did have a couple of testimonies, and a student spoke at the National Building Reconciliation Forum about her experience and how her anxiety, she generally had a lot of anxiety. And so while she was there, and she took all 4 courses, and each course, she said, built on tools that could help her deal better with when she was experiencing anxiety. And what she said is that overall, in general, she's never returned back to the same level that she first started when she first started those courses. And so I think that, and then now when she feels the need, she knows she can go just to the land, to sit, to be there, to act, to engage with the land, and she knows that she's going to come back right to that place where she's going to be finding her joy again. I hope that answered your question.
It does. It totally does. And I really, really appreciate this insight and this lovely, lovely presentation. I'm just going to wait if there's any other questions. Mary, would you be okay if folks wanted to get in touch with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. And I believe I'll have your email available either in the chat or when I have the recording up on our website. It doesn't look like there's any more questions. So thank you so much, Mary, for this great, great presentation. Very insightful. And I know everybody here found it insightful as well. And so, folks, just letting you know that our next webinar will be occurring March 13th, and it will be on healthy platonic relationships. So that will be on our website, just like all of our webinars are. And folks, please complete the survey that will pop up as you leave this webinar. It will let us know if we're doing a good job, if there's any certain topics that you're looking forward to. And yeah, I hope everyone have a very good rest of the day, and hope you found this very, very insightful.